and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about the top 10 scary last wishes. Not to be morbid or anything, but what would your guys' last wishes be? Let me know in the comment section down below. You can make something up if you don't feel deathly today. Also, while you're down there, why don't you like this video and share it with a friend? And also, if you guys want to connect with me on social media, then my link to my Instagram is in the description box. Coming in at number 10, we have Put My Ashes into Bullets. Okay there, bud. In 2004, a widow of a shotgun enthusiast fulfilled her husband's last wish of being turned into a bullet. Mrs. Booth's husband was a vintage gun specialist and sadly died aged 50 after a very severe bout of food poisoning. Joanna Booth took her husband's ashes and had them turned into 275 12-bore cartridges that were then blessed by a minister. Gotta get that blessing. She took them up to a shooting estate in Aberdeenshire, Scotland, and shot the bullets at wildlife. Effectively, Mr. Booth's killed 7 ducks, 23 pheasants, 70 partridges, and a fox from beyond the grave. I'm not so down for that. Julian McCarty of the Caledonian Cartridge Company, who turned the man's remain into bullets, said it was a perfectly normal scattering of ashes, a few words and prayers. After all, he had a lifelong interest in ballistics. Got so many opinions, but not enough time. Coming into number 9, this last wish comes from the very famous illusionist Harry Houdini, who wanted an annual seance to be held so he could speak to his wife and friends beyond the grave. Houdini died after being punched in the stomach in Montreal, Canada, succumbing to appendicitis days later. How many days later? Well, Harry Houdini famously died on Halloween, so if you put 2 and 2 together, you'll realize that this seance was also intended to be each year on the anniversary of his death, Halloween. Way to make Halloween 10 times scarier, Houdini. He left his wife a secret note of 10 randomly selected words that he would communicate after his death. She held the seance on Halloween every year for 10 years, but sadly, he never turned up to talk with her. Imagine how heartbroken she must have felt each year. Mediums who later found the code left to his wife have desperately tried to contact the late illusionist, but as far as I know, to no avail. Coming in at number 8, we have Live Forever as a Machine. Classic! American best-selling author Ray Kurzweil isn't dead yet. Far from it, in fact. The 70-year-old now works as director of engineering at Google and is a supporter of all things AI. While he should have a good number of years left in him, he has a plan for what he wants done when he does die. He's a strong advocate for living forever as a machine. In his book The Singularity is Near, he says that he is pro-emulsion of the human brain running on electronic systems that would run much faster than our biological brains. Like Ross says in Friends, this would mean he could live forever as a machine. All avenues of thought and inquiry on this are pretty scary, but I'll ask you just one question. How would you feel about being a machine? It'd be faster and stronger than you ever were in real life. Do you think that'd be cool or terrifying? And also, what would machine you do to your legacy? Coming in at number 7, we have Death to Europe. ISIS are a blight on the modern world, and I do hope they get what's coming to them. Nonetheless, there are thousands of so-called soldiers out there whose living and dying wish is to bring down the West. Mohammed Dalil wanted to kill hundreds of young Germans and even attempted to in a terror attack. He tried to get into an open-air concert to detonate a bomb, but was denied entry. He then walked into a nearby wine bar and detonated the explosive, injuring 12 people in July 2016. Dalil was killed as the bomb exploded. In a video released after his death, he said that the West would no longer live peacefully and warned that the next explosion would be carried out with a car bomb. His death wish was to kill the young people of Germany in the name of the Islamic State. Coming in at number 6, we have Bernard Brandes, the guy that wanted to be eaten. In Germany in 2001, Bernard Brandes responded to an advertisement looking for a willing volunteer to be, I quote, slaughtered and consumed. The man looking for a volunteer was cannibal Armin Meeweis. Brandes was willing and wanted to die, requesting that the 40-year-old bite off his penis. The pair then tried to eat it together. Brandes' dying wish was that Meeweis eat the rest of him, which he did over the next 10 months. The German cannibal was later discovered and arrested after a blog was found online. The police discovered the rest of his body in a videotape of the killing at his home. McPhee was only jailed for 8 years in 2004 because Brandes was willing and wished to be eaten. Cannibal is now out of jail and has turned vegetarian. Coming into number 5, we have a lump of dirt. When on death row, it is customary for prisoners to request a last meal. James Edward Smith made his dying wish, but not for ribs, ice cream or chicken wings like most prisoners. Instead, he asked for a lump of dirt. James was convicted of the 1983 robbery and murder of Larry D. Rojas. The issue with his last request was that Smith was seemingly a former voodoo priest, tarot reader and Hare Krishna devotee. He made the mistake of revealing he wanted the dirt in order to perform a voodoo ritual. Police officers quickly denied his request. Honestly, who knows what he was planning to do with it. Coming into number 4, we have the man made of wax. Wax is a concept that is slightly unsettling, then again so is decapitation. English philosopher Jeremy Bentham was well known for his pro-utilitarianism and pro-animal rights attitude. He also invented the panopticon prison and is generally remembered for being a critical thinker. Although this isn't all he's remembered for, on his death he donated part of his body to science. Hip hip jamboree, like I get it. Cool. What happened to the other part of his body? Well, he wanted it covered in wax and put on display in a case at University College London. It's still there. It's what he did. It's there. His original mummified head started looking really scary, so it's been replaced with a waxwork one, although you can still view the original if you dare. Coming in at number 3, we have the man who requested a stake through the heart. It seems that Dr. Harold West was quite the eccentric and also seemingly a bit of a cryptozoologist. He has some concerns that after he died he may well turn into a vampire, so he requested that upon his death a steel stake be driven through his heart. Now I believe this action was carried out in 1972 by his doctor. Better safe than sorry after all. I thought that it was a silver or wood stake that needed to be driven through the heart of a vampire. How all my years of watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer served me wrong. Coming in at number 2, we have the murderer who wanted to rejoin his victims. I think that we can all agree that mass child murderer Ian Brady was an absolute scumbag. The killer was part of a murderous duo known as the Moors Murderers. They killed 5 children and buried their bodies across the Yorkshire moors between 1963 and 1965. The victims were between the ages of 10 and 17, and at least 4 of them had been sexually assaulted. He never revealed where one of the bodies were buried, much to the dismay of the kid's mother. When he died in May 2017, his dying wish was to have his ashes scattered across the North Yorkshire moors, effectively joining his victims in their final resting place. Luckily, this request was denied as it was deemed offensive and morally improper. One of the victims' family members said that this is the final act of an evil, twisted man. In the end, his ashes were dumped in the ocean. Okay, so this list has been pretty dark, so I wanted to end on something a little bit more upbeat, excuse the pun. We have the guy who wanted to have a drum made out of his dead body. I don't know, I'm actually weirdly here for this, but I do have a dark sense of humour. In the People Almanac, it was said that a 19th century hatter from New England in the US was, you know, kind of mad, like those hatters tended to be. I don't know, something about the mercury. We can't go into that right now. The hatter in question, mad as he was said to be the decidedly balmy S. Sanborn, whose final wish was to be turned into a pair of drums. So drums already have skin, usually animal skin, and he wanted to be that skin. His final wish was two-pronged. Not only did he want to be a set of drums, he wanted his friend to bang out Yankee Doodle Dandy on the 17th of June every year while standing on Banker Hill. Like honestly, as morbid as this is and as weird as it is to be turned into drums, like, I actually kinda love this.
Take a trip, the surest of sure things. Have your houses mortgaged, hock your watches, pawn your rings, and put it all on Yankee Doodle, Johnny Jones is up.
Maybe when I die, I'd like to be turned into a vuvuzela, and I'd make Danny play it loud and proud to the tune of Seven Nation Army every 7th of January on the banks of Lake Ontario. Just cause. A last wish in the whole, you know, flaying and displaying concept is pretty scary, but you can't say that that isn't practical. Alright guys, there we have it. That was the top 10 scary last wishes. Which of these did you think was the scariest? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, weird and wonderful as it may be, let me know what your last wish would be. For now, I'm your host Rebecca Felgate. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, and stay subscribed for more most amazing and frankly pretty scary lists. Bye!